Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to this special edition of the Lopes Goes Last podcast. Putting out 2 episodes in 1 week because that's just how the schedule ended up working out, and I'm glad it did. We got my friend Dan Lindsey back on the pod. It's been way too long, my friend, and
Way
it's
too long.
100% my fault. So I apologize, but it's
Well,
good to
someone
see
has
you.
to travel the world for a few
I
weeks,
know
so
I'm a jerk. What are you gonna do? But um, I'm glad to see you, my friend, and I'm super happy to talk about some NBA stuff with you today. But how have you been, man?
doing well, doing well. You joined me on my podcast for a couple times. I appreciate you kind of sharing the podcast love there. I haven't really done an episode for a few weeks, just life happens.
Sure.
I'm going to try to get back into that here, hopefully beginning of December. We're already cooking up some ideas that's I think will be fun. I think our people will really enjoy. But yeah, so it's nice just to kind of get back and doing this with you. So I appreciate having me on.
Absolutely, man. Anytime, absolutely anytime. So, like I said, normally, Dan, we talk WWE when we get together, but not this time. I wanted to go over a few questions that I have for you. Um, I was I was kind of hoping initially to get you in before the season started, but with the travel and everything, it just ended up not working out. I wanted to get you. I had about a 3 to 4 day period where I was here and the NBA season had not started and we could do the interview, but I told you before we actually started this whole thing that I got just so violently ill the day I got back that like I'd gotten sick the last day of my trip and I started to feel it and I had traveled for like 18 hours to get back with all the layovers and time changes and all that jazz. And so when I got back, I couldn't talk. I couldn't move. Like I was dead. And so it was dead on arrival, unfortunately. But we're gonna get this thing done now. And I was able to come up with some, I think, pretty interesting questions that still pertain to what's going on right now. So the first question that I have for you is: does the regular season matter this year at all, or are we just basically moving towards the inevitable Boston Celtics versus Oklahoma City Thunder NBA Finals? Because that's kind of what a lot of people are thinking is going to happen. Is anybody stopping the Celtics and the Thunder this year, or is it just inevitable?
Well, I think Cleveland has something to say about Boston right now.
Oh yeah,
When I think we'll talk about them a little bit more later, but Cleveland, I'm actually very surprised by Cleveland. One, they're undefeated. We obviously know that won't last, but the fact that they're the last undefeated team, the Thunder were at the beginning of the week until they just lost to Denver. Maybe I don't know. By the time this records, maybe Cleveland will finally get an L in that column. Who knows? Well, it remains to be seen. But they're an interesting team to me right now because they're probably one of the best shooting teams in the league right now. They don't rebound well, but they take care of the ball and they are, one of the best shooting teams in the league right now. I had up something. Their effective field goal percentage is 61 point something percent, and I think the next closest team is about 5% behind that, and that's I think actually is Boston actually. Last I looked, so I think Cleveland has something to say, but to me, it's I think we're all getting a little regression here. If you would have asked me before the season started, who did I take out of the Eastern Conference, I'd have been hard pressed to pick anybody but Boston. It's they've been kind of the king of that conference for a few years now. Multiple conference final trips, few trips to the NBA Finals. Finally got that 18th ring last year, which is wonderful. Young team that keeps growing in front of us every single night, every single season. So I'd have been hard pressed to take anybody. I think teams like the Knicks, maybe Butler pulls the Heat up one more time by his bootstraps.
no.
But I mean, it's I before even all the drama started happening in Philly, I wouldn't have put Philly up there. Not wouldn't have put Milwaukee up there. The Knicks, just based off last year, the Pacers maybe, but the Pacers, I think everybody wants to see them play defense more. You can't outscore everybody, and when you're trying to play Boston, who's also outscoring almost everybody, you know, uh, it'd be hard pressed. I don't remember how many wins Boston had last year. Like what, 65 or
64.
thereabout,
Yeah.
64. I don't know if they'll get to 60 wins this year. I think I'd have been a little been like, I might have hedged my bet around like the 59 to 61 win range, but again, that should be enough for the top seed in the conference. The regular season matters. I think you got to get that chemistry down. Team like Phoenix, um, team like the Thunder, team like the Knicks, especially. The Knicks brought in Mikal Bridges and Cat. Sorry, that skipped me for a second.
Yeah.
So they brought in two big players that replaced role players that helped them do so well last year, helped them be a tough team defensively and a tough out in the playoffs last year, with especially with all their injury history. So it's kind of like I think we're all all kind of as NBA fans, I think we're hoping that they show up. So the Knicks, I guess Cleveland as of right now, as of this record, let's check back in like 2 months and see if we want to answer this question the same. If everybody's, knocking wood, if everybody stays healthy, of course, that's always the biggest caveat and everything. But, I think there's only really two teams that I think over the course of the season could really challenge them as the Knicks and I guess Cleveland right now in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, for sure. And then out west, how do you kind of look at the Thunder and what they're doing? Obviously, they got their first loss to the Nuggets, and the Nuggets
Yeah.
have always given the Thunder trouble. It is to me a bit troubling that this version of the Nuggets gave them so much trouble. I think that that's a bit. That's got to be a soul search if you're the Thunder. Like, do we really want to, when are we going to be able to get over this kind of the Nuggets are just better than us kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is there if there is anybody out west that you think is going to stop the Thunder? Who would they be? And if not, then what do you think about what's going to happen out west?
I think at the West, it's I'm shocked by Golden State right now. Um, I figured Buddy Heald. Heald is how you pronounce his last name, right?
Mm-hmm.
I figured Buddy would be a nice pairing with Steph, with Wiggins, um, even coming off the bench. Like I think he only has one or two starts. He's not even really he's getting starter minutes, but he's not actually starting. But still, I think he'd plug into that team pretty well. Just give that team another dynamic shooter. So I'm a little, but I didn't expect like a 7-1 start from the Warriors. So I think that's really impressive. I'll touch on them more later too.
Mm-hmm.
But one team, beginning of the season, and I think right now it's great to see them at 7-1 was Phoenix. Maybe Phoenix has this figured out now. I think a lot of teams poo-pooed them last year, or a lot of people poo-pooed them last year just because, you know, they just couldn't do what they had. You had Beal and Kevin Durant joining Devin Booker, but those three guys only played like 34, 36 games together. So if they can actually all stay healthy this year, I think Phoenix would have been kind of a top four seed pick for me. I would have no problem putting in the top four. And right now, there's a three-way tie between Phoenix, Golden State, and the Thunder after the Thunder's loss. Uh, so Phoenix has been up there. You can't count out Denver. When you have one of the best players in the league and Jokic, you can't count them out. Um, after that, the Grizzlies are a team that's I'm curious about, just considering how Ja Morant does coming back finally for them finally. I'm not very hopeful for Minnesota because it's basically Anthony Edwards and everybody else because they got rid of Cat and Rudy Gobert's an older Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
It's Sacktown. They'll be interesting. A lot the city of Los Angeles and their two teams. You never know what's going to happen there. And it's a lot of 5-4 win teams right now in the Western Conference. Obviously, we're early into the season. First 8 or 10 games for most. Not even 10 games yet. First little leg of the season. So sample size is always hard. I feel. But the fact that the Thunder, picked up where from the left off last year, they're looking for a little redemption. It's like, hey, we got the number one seed in the conference last year, but we couldn't make it to the finals. So I think, hopefully SGA and the team has that little bit of a chip on their shoulder, to where it's like, hey, we're proving we're one of the best teams in the Western Conference. Let's go get the number one seed again and actually make it to the NBA Finals this time. But I think it's a lot more, as it has been for I don't know, the last 15 years, the Western Conference can be more competitive, and I think we'll get some teams, shake it out here. Obviously, I don't think we're going to hear anything from Utah or the Pelicans. I doubt any we'll get any noise from those two teams. Or Portland even. But I think just about everybody else is there for at least a chance at a playoff spot, playing tournament, or not playing tournament, playing tournament. So but your top tier. Thunder has some competition again. Can't count out Denver. Obviously, Golden State has something to prove too. I think so. I think that's an interesting wild card, but Phoenix is up there for me for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I like all of that. I agree. I don't think that this year is kind of a wash. I think certainly there's a lot of different teams that can get there. I don't think anyone will get there. I do think inevitably it will be Thunder Celtics in the finals this year. And the reason for that, it's not just that, I'm not sitting here trying to discount anybody else and how they're playing. Obviously, Cleveland is on a tear right now, and I had a lot to say about Cleveland. I took flack, at the beginning of last year because I said that Cleveland would have the number 2 seed in the East because I was that afraid of them. I was that bought into the talent level that each of their players had. And unfortunately, Evan Mobley did not play all that, as good as we all thought that he would. And Darius Garland definitely did not play up to his potential. And so it just that dragged the whole team down. And then obviously Jared Allen was injured for the entire playoff run, and that dragged the whole team down. They are healthy this year. Darius Garland is playing at his former All-Star level. Evan Mobley has taken a step forward. That means this Cleveland Cavaliers team is legit. That's what that means. I hate to break it to everybody. This isn't some flash in the pan. This is a team that could legitimately win 60 games if they stay healthy. That's how good this team is. So I said that last year. I will say it again this year. This does not shock me from the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm probably the one person that's sitting here going, oh, yeah, no, that schedule, that team, they're all healthy? Yeah, makes sense. It just does to me. So I mean, who did they play? They played the Bucks twice and beat them twice by, you know 2 points and 4 points, I think, each,
Mm-hmm.
because the Cavaliers have a bunch of guys, mainly I would say Donovan Mitchell, of course, that can play in the clutch. They can play in clutch time. So they've got a myriad of ways to beat you. They obviously have the Twin Towers and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley that they can punish you inside, and now their shooting is actually there with
Yeah.
Mitchell, with Garland, with Struess, with all these guys that they brought in. This is what it was supposed to be last year if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I think I think again this doesn't shock me. However, it's not about what happens in the regular season. It's not about any of that. It is about what is sustainable and what is the likelihood that a team in their current construction can, if you are in the East, beat the Boston Celtics 4 times out of 7 when the Celtics are fully healthy? Or in the West, can this team beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 4 times out of 7 if the Thunder are fully healthy? To me, I don't see a single team right now that, if the Celtics are fully healthy and if the Thunder are fully healthy, that I think legitimately will beat them in a 7-game series. I could see the Thunder going down a little bit more easily than the Celtics right now because, at the very least, the Celtics have a killer defense as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this year it has taken a bit of a step back, but I have to say, more likely than not, they just don't give a rip right now. They just don't give a rip. I mean, dude, they just won a championship, got all that monkey off their back. Do you really think they're going to give that extra little millimeter of effort on defense on a Thursday against Charlotte? Like, no, they're not. I'm sorry. And by the way, we still beat Charlotte by a combined like 40 points in 2 games, even without that defense. So it didn't really matter. So to me,
Uh, Poor
d-
Charlotte.
yeah, sorry Charlotte, you didn't deserve that. They're actually pretty good this year, to be honest. They're doing reasonably well. Lamelo is balling right now, and no, I didn't just say that because that's his last name. Um, but so I look at Cleveland. I think they're the only team that even has a remote chance of beating the Celtics in a 7-game series. You mentioned the Knicks. Brother, we beat the Knicks by 40 on opening night or something. I mean, we took them by the woodshed. They were fully healthy, ready to roll, and we didn't have our third best player, and we took a wooden paddle and spanked them for 48 minutes.
Who is beating a team that just got off their championship and just raised their banner and got all their rings? That team was hyped. No one was beating that team.
Oftentimes, it
Not even
actually
the
happens.
96, maybe the 96 Bulls, but that's about it.
That actually happens quite often. I actually think, I don't know what the statistics are on this, obviously, but I would venture to go back and look how often a team will get beat on their right after their ring ceremony. It actually happens pretty often. Where like you'd think it would fire a team up and it actually just kind of distracts them and stuff like that, and they just come out a little bit flat. Nah, bro. If we didn't miss
It was
15,
hyped though. I watched that
if
ceremony.
yeah, it did, but that doesn't always happen. That's the point. Is if we didn't miss 15 threes in a row or whatever, we'd have broken the record for most threes in a game. Like it just
Well, yeah, because they couldn't miss in that first
yeah,
quarter. It was like
yeah. So
30
it was
to
just
10 in the first quarter.
yeah, so it was just one of those things where I saw that and I went, oh no, Karl Anthony Towns is getting annihilated by the Celtics in a 7-game series. If you think anybody is this is what the Celtics are going to do if they play the Knicks. Whoever Cat is guarding is going to come up and be the screener. And they're either going to have to keep Cat off the ball and not switch and just let the Celtics do whatever they want, shoot a bunch of threes at the top of the key, and, shoot 65 threes and make 20 of them, and then you're going to lose.
Yeah,
Or,
I honestly felt too like when the Knicks brought in Cat, like that was almost like a not a downgrade because I mean you obviously got star power and star
no, it was a
presence and
downgrade.
upgrade over who, but at the same time I feel like we just the world got to witness how much of a defensive liability he was last year and against Dallas if I remember correctly.
Mm.
Wow. It seems like forever ago, even though it was like a few months ago.
Which, by the
We
way,
got to see, we got
I,
to see him.
I laughed on
Sorry.
the inside when you were going through all of the West contenders and you did not even mention Dallas because they, no. Because no, that's why. The answer is no. That's it was a fluke. That's what it was. They got hot. They played all the right teams, and that was it.
Yep.
So
Yeah, we said that a lot last week. I think we were both on that. We were on that same page all playoff last year. It's
mhm.
like we don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing it. Look
Yeah,
at it with
and then they
that
played a real
superpower.
contender and they got annihilated. That's what happened. So anyway, no, I think it was a downgrade personally. I think if it ended up being Julius Randle, Miles McBride, and 2 first-round picks, I would have said it was an upgrade. But when you threw Dante DiVincenzo in there, I went, "Oh, you idiots! Like, what are you doing? That was your second best player in the playoffs. Like, what are you doing? This is a guy that the whole city fell in love with that plays perfectly in that system. He's a great defender. He's an awesome shooter. He's got
Yeah,
just the gritty attitude that the New York fans loved last year.
yeah,
And he was the best player on the floor in game 7. Like,
yeah. No,
just
I honestly
crazy
felt
that
I
you
was
guy gave him
surprised
up.
the Knicks brought in Cat because it was like that gives him a star name, it gives him star power, but does it really actually help the team
No,
makeup right now?
I don't
And
think
I
it
was like,
does.
I didn't
And
feel
I
like
think
it
their
did.
record is showing it right now that it doesn't. It doesn't help because they're
Yeah,
fully healthy. They have OG Ananobi fully healthy, Mikal Bridges fully healthy, Jalen Brunson fully healthy, Cap fully healthy, and they are 500 basketball team.
yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I think that's why I don't. I buy into them long term, just because I feel like they'll figure it out. Like
Maybe. Yeah.
they somehow figured it out last year with all the injuries they had. So like again, we check in with them 2 or 3 months from now. And it's like how are they faring? If they're still all healthy and everything.
Sure.
Um, but I don't it's I think if you had to come up with 3 contenders for the Celtics, like if you had to come up with a list, like they make that list,
Sure,
and it's a
if I
really
had
short
to
list.
come up with the 3 biggest threats in the East, but it's not like I'm talking about they're going to have to fight Godzilla, King Kong, and, the Megazord from Power
Power Rangers.
Rangers. They're going to have to fight like I don't know, like they're going to have to fight like
This is why
just
I
like a
love this podcast,
like
folks.
Barney the
Come
like
to
they're all
Basketball
Barney the
Station Power
dinosaur.
Rangers.
Cleveland is the only one that I'd be like they might be a Godzilla. They might be really tough because Donovan Mitchell is for real. If Darius Garland is going to drop 30 a night, it's going to be tough.
Well, and Donovan re-signed with them this offseason, right?
Yes.
So I mean, to me, that's how much does that say to a team, to a community, to a place like Cleveland where you don't often get big name free agents. It's a lot of
Yeah.
homegrown talent that ends up leaving. A guy like Mitchell is like, hey, I'm willing to stay here. To me
Yeah.
that just says so much about him, that team, and I mean, it's their starting five from last year, so it's like you're only going to get better as you
Mhm.
play more together.
Yeah, for sure. And the only thing that I get concerned with Cleveland when they face the Celtics is defensively they are going to struggle because Garland is not a good defender. Mitchell is not a good defender. Evan Mobley is excellent, an excellent defender. Jared Allen is an excellent interior defender, not a good perimeter defender. And I saw Isaac Okoro is not starting anymore. He was a really good perimeter defender. He's the best perimeter defender they had. I don't remember who is starting for them right now. So, to be fair, I have a bit of a lack of knowledge onto who's their starting three. Maybe it's Struess. I don't know. If it is Struess, then he's not a good defender either. So defensively, you're going to struggle if you're playing against the Celtics in a 7-game series with that starting five. And even with Okoro out there, if for some reason Okoro starts again, then even with him, like you still have three pretty weak perimeter defenders that you have to guard all these 3-point shooters. They're going to struggle with that. But regardless, I don't think it's a wash. I do think that um, it's going to be really difficult. I could see, and by the way, if I were to come up with three contenders, my three contenders would be, um, well, it would have been Orlando before Paolo Banchero got hurt. Orlando would have been number two probably, just because I predicted before the season started Paolo Banchero was going to be second team All NBA this year. I thought he was going to take a huge leap. He was going to go from 22 points a night to 29. I didn't expect the playmaking to go up as quickly as it did. He was just like 10 assists a game or something insane for the first couple games before he got hurt. And who knows? Maybe that wasn't sustainable, but I think it was. Honestly, if you saw the way they were playing, I thought it was really sustainable. But I would have had Cleveland, I would have had Orlando, and I would have had Indiana. Those would have probably been my three. I wouldn't even have had New York or Milwaukee on
Yeah,
my
but
top
definitely Milwaukee.
on my
Yeah,
top three because Indiana, I don't care what anybody says, how bad they are on defense. I hate watching the Celtics play the Indiana Pacers because it's like I don't know. You ever seen that? You ever seen Space Jam? I assume everybody's seen Space Jam, but who knows? Maybe you haven't. So anyway, Space Jam. Do you remember the scene where they're getting their butts just whooped, right? And they're in the locker room at halftime, and they get this like magic water or something like that. I think that before they play the Celtics, they drink a bunch of magic water and all turn into Michael Jordan. Because they just don't. Dude, Pascal Siakam's shooting 31% from three on the season the last time I looked. He was like 9 for 10 from three against the Celtics. Like, they just don't miss when they play the Celtics. And no, you can't say because the Celtics are a bad defensive team. They have one of the best defensive teams in basketball, and they have two of the best perimeter defenders in all of basketball in Drew Holiday and Derek White. And the Indiana Pacers just say, I don't really care about that. I'm just going to go out there and shoot 65% from the field today. And it's ridiculous. So I hate facing the Pacers. I hate them. There's a reason why we always freaking lose to them in the regular season. Because we go out there thinking we're going to play a normal basketball game, and they go out there thinking we're fighting for the NBA championship tonight. Tonight is the NBA championship. We have to make every shot or we're going to die, and we're going to sprint up and down the floor like we're being chased by a bunch of bears the whole night. And it's horrible. I hate those games because literally I'm like,
and what you
hey,
said,
Derek White scored a and they scored a three. Hey, Jason Tatum scored a and they scored. Like literally that's how fast it happens. It's like,
yeah,
hey, we scored and layup on the other end. Like they just
and that's hard for I think for
like,
any team to play against. It's like
oh, it's
there's one
frightening.
thing to have a good defense or to to be able to stop good teams, but when you have to basically have a track meet for 48 minutes, that's just
That's
hard for
tough.
anybody.
It's
No matter
tough.
how
Yeah.
good your offense is, it's like you what a couple extra turnovers can decide it can make the difference in the game. No
Yep.
problem.
And they did an interview with I think it was Jaylen Brown, and they asked him what was the toughest part of the postseason last year, and he said playing the Pacers because they are just ridiculous. Like he's like every single night we had to just like go out like we were all dying after every game trying to play them because they just don't stop. Like anybody who thinks the Pacers are just gone are not paying attention. Like yeah, they don't play great in the regular season at times because if you play like that and you miss a bunch, well then you can't play defense and the team's going to get up on you by 15 early and then you're going to start pressing, and then you're going to start missing shots, and then it's just going to spiral out of control. But if you don't miss, then guess what? It's impossible. They put up 140 points. Granted, it took it to overtime, but at the same time, it's like, oh my gosh, like these guys are ridiculous. They're difficult. And then I would have said
If you think they're
Orlando, and I would have said
lifting up the
Cleveland.
weights, it makes you exhausted.
Yeah, and now obviously Orlando is sorry without Paolo, they're just not an NBA championship contender. I hate to break it to everybody. Now, granted, if he does come back before the end of the season, then we'll revisit it. But I don't think he is. I know he's getting reevaluated, like you had mentioned off camera. In like 6 weeks or
But
whatever. But
that'll still be 2 months before that even
yeah, no,
happens.
I think he's done for the year. I think it's pretty. I feel like that's pretty reasonable to assume. So now, yes, I would put the Knicks on there by default, but that's only because the Magic lost their best player and now they're dead.
Yeah.
So
Heck,
it's
if I'm the Magic, sit him for the season and hope for a top three, top five, top three lottery pick and get someone really cool. I don't know what the college draft looks like at all for next year, but
really
get
really
someone
deep, dude. This is the Cooper
get
Flag and
someone
Ace Bailey
nice and
draft.
exciting to pair with Paulo and go from there.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, all right, let's move on to the next question here. So we've mentioned these two teams as we've talked about this. So I'm interested to hear your take on it. Which of the two great runs here is more sustainable for the rest of the season? The Cleveland Cavaliers or the Golden State Warriors?
I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors. I think their run is a little more sustainable. One, they don't have the pressure of being undefeated. They got that loss kind of taken care of already. I think the more that you add up those wins, and go on an undefeated streak, that just the pressure just has to be mounting on internally. Not that I've ever been a part of a team that's at that level, with that winning streak, but I gotta imagine that pressure just has to be intense.
Yeah,
Even on like 5, 6 game winning streaks, it's like, what do we got to do to keep it up tonight, especially if we get behind early?
sure.
But I think the Warriors are a little more sustainable. They're the second best defense according to defensive rating. They have the best net rating in the NBA right now. 1.3 above the Thunder. Their second best defense is only to the Thunder. This is all from Basketball Reference. As I'm pulling this off. Buddy Hield. I mentioned him right now. If I can find it now. Buddy Hield is matching Steph Curry point for point, 21 points a game for both of them. And this man's coming off the bench. I got to imagine he's going to get starter minutes soon, but if honestly, if Wiggins can figure it out a little bit more, I think for that team, I mean, we're going to see a new big three kind of, I think, in Golden State a little bit, just because we got these three excellent shooters. And obviously, if two of them are cold one night, one's got to save the night, but and so it doesn't always help. But I figure, I don't know, Buddy Hield, I think he's been in the league, 7 or 8 years now. So he's got some season behind him. I did have that up too. Um, you do.
I think it's been
Probably
in a
actually
decade now. I
12 years. Yeah, 10th year.
Yeah,
9 years. Whatever. He was in Sacramento for a while. Then he bounced around a couple teams. So, Golden State picked him up. Right now, again, small sample size, but his 21 points, 21.9 points a game, career high. He's back up to 2018-19 numbers for us. Those are kind of his best years of his career. He's kind of back to those numbers for rebounds, assists, and stuff. So I mean, he's already having excellent year. And again, coming off the bench. Looking at Golden State's history too, like again, we don't, recency bias is hard, but it's their best offensive rating they've had in like 7 seasons. Kind of going back to that, where they're in where they won 3 championships in 5 years. The numbers are making it look like they're a team kind of like that again. So I think the Warriors are more sustainable. Um, looking at Cleveland stats, I'm just kind of worried about them. They got good shooters. They got good interior. Like you were saying with Allen and Mobley. But you can beat them on the offensive glass. On the offensive glass, they don't do well.
Sure.
they're actually the bottom five as far as grabbing offensive rebounds when they have a chance to.
Sure.
Defensive rebounds, they're doing well. They're one of the better defensive rebounding teams. So I guess maybe that equals out and stuff. But for having Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, I feel like if you have guys that are aggressive down low that can attack them and keep them on their heels, I feel like you can do that. If they can bully you in the paint, they'll probably win. But I feel like if you can come across those teams, their strength of schedule isn't as tough as
No.
others. It's one of the easiest so far, I think, to start the season.
Absolutely.
Golden State's is kind of there too. It's not as easy, but I think they're a little bit closer to league average. Uh, Basketball Reference has this fun little SRS, um, rating system that factors in a few things. Golden State's topping that. Cleveland's number 5. I think we'll see both these teams at the top of their conferences for a while, most of the season. But I feel like Golden State's been there. Golden State's been there with Draymond, with Steph. They've had Wiggins for a few years now. Inserting Buddy into that mix, I think, will be just the injection they need to maybe give Steph one or two more runs. It might be his final run, but if this is their final run, I could see them, just pushing that. But I think, to me, I think it's easier to sustain for Golden State, and that's something to say too. I feel like in the Western Conference, I feel like that's easy out. Cleveland in the East, of course, this is sustainable. Golden State's in the West. They have tougher competition, but
Sure.
basketball is still basketball. I think as a team makeup, I think I give Golden State the edge here.
Yeah, I love that. That all makes a lot of sense to me. And there's the reason why I posed this question in particular is because there's so many statistics to pick apart that can
Mm-hmm.
tell you this is why Cleveland is more sustainable. This is why Golden State's more sustainable. You know, you could say, oh, Golden State didn't have a good strength of schedule. They haven't played a lot of good teams. And yeah, they played Boston last night as a time of recording, but they played them without Jaylen Brown, without Kristaps Porzingis, and they barely squeaked out a win. So, hey, the strength of schedule doesn't look at did they play that really good team without their best players. They just say did they play that team. So what level of just Jason Tatum basically, Derek White and Drew Holiday, yes, but of essentially, no other All Stars on the team. What level is that team? It's a pretty good team, but it's not, championship caliber. Um, and then you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers schedule, and you're like, oh, well, their strength schedule is really bad. Yeah, but they also played the Bucks with Damian and Giannis twice. And yeah, the Bucks are really bad right now, but it's not like Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo are two bad basketball players. They're excellent, right? So you still got to figure out a way to stop those two, and they did twice. So good for them. So you can kind of look at it both ways. I tend to agree with you. I do think that the Warriors' run is a bit more sustainable. One, because I think expectations are a little bit limited for them. I think if they were to go, they're not going to be 68 and 10 by the end of the year, 68 and 14, I think that would be
Yeah,
by the
14.
end of the year. They're not going to be 68 and 14. Like, they're not going to hold this. But the way that they play is very sustainable. Their defense is really good. They trap a lot. They shoot a lot of threes. And right now they're going in. And that's great. Now, Cleveland, I worry about their defense. I worry about their offensive rebounding numbers, like you said. Um, Now, the reason why I worry about the offensive rebounding numbers is probably not just because the numbers are bad. It's because the reasons that they're bad are not something that you can really fix. Because in today's NBA, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley have to guard in space. And all people are going to do is bring them up on screens and force them to guard in the perimeter, force them to guard the ball up top. which means that if they're up top and people are shooting threes, they're not down low to get the rebounds on all, and luckily one of them is going to be, um, one of them is going to be down low as well in that, at least in theory. But it's just something that's not sustainable for them, or maybe it is sustainable, but not in a good way because it's sustainably bad. So I don't see the Cleveland Cavaliers um, holding this for the rest of the season. I don't think they're going to be the best team in basketball by the end of the year, obviously, at this point. Now, will they be the second seed in the East? I think 100%. I think you could lock that in right now, barring catastrophe like last year, like Donovan Mitchell goes down for another half a season, Darius Garland, gets to the spotlight of being the number one guy again and kind of falters like he did last year. Mobley regresses, like barring complete catastrophe. I don't see how you think anybody in the East is going to be the second best team other than Cleveland because it's literally Cleveland's 9-0, Boston's 7-2, everybody
And
else is
everybody else.
500 or worse. It feels like maybe there's some 5-4s out there. I don't know, but it's basically just like Celtics, Cleveland,
Yeah.
everybody else right now.
No other teams are above 500 right now.
No other teams are above 500. That's insane.
Right now, it's as of games through. Let's see, as of games through Wednesday, Brooklyn's number 3, tied with Indiana.
Brooklyn's number 3. Dude, okay,
Brooklyn's number
I
3.
did not know that.
Who do they have? I'm
I have
sorry.
to mention that Cam
That's what they
Thomas. That's all
existed.
they have is Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas scoring 30 points a night because he finally they're like, all right, Cam, you wanted the ball this whole time. There's literally nobody else on this team that knows how to play. So here you go.
You get a random guess. Who's number 5 in the East right now? Who's number 5? Because I'm shocked by seeing this right now in the standings.
Okay, so Detroit's doing pretty well. Charlotte's doing pretty well. They've won a couple games. I'm
They've
gonna go
both
with
won a three-piece.
they both won 3. Okay, so then they're
Yeah.
not. They're probably not 5. Ooh, Toronto.
Nope, they're third worst right now.
Oh, are they that bad? Oh boy. Poor Scotty Barnes. Poor Scotty Barnes. He's so good, man, and he's just out there rotting in Toronto. Oh, that poor kid. And they signed him into a huge extension, so he can't even escape. Like, it's not like he can even get out of there. They signed him to like a 5-year max extension, and it's like, dang it. Uh, that's a
Yeah.
good. I don't know who's number 5 because it's not Indiana. They
Atlanta.
struggled a lot. It is Indiana.
Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta. Oh, we beat Atlanta by like a billion the other night without JB and Kristaps Porzingis. We beat them by like 30 in Atlanta. It was horrible. They stink, dude. I don't know how that tells you how bad the East is right now.
Yeah. Right
So
now,
yeah.
it's Brooklyn, Indiana, Atlanta. As your 3, 4, and 5, and then
Jeez.
Miami, and the Knicks are tied at 6.
Oh. Oh boy. Okay. So anyway,
This is gonna be the Eastern. What they should do for the Eastern Conference this year? They should basically give like Cleveland and Boston 2, or give them each a bye for the first 2 rounds. Let everybody else go at it.
yeah, and then can we just skip to the Eastern Conference Finals? Do we really have to embarrass
I
these poor people on
mean,
national TV? Like, it's so. All I will say, you know what does not make me feel good? Pretty sure if the NBA draft was starting today, the Milwaukee Bucks would have the best odds at the number 1 pick. And if I have to see Giannis Antetokounmpo and Cooper Flag on the same team for the next 10 years, I'm probably just going to blow my head off. I won't be able to handle it. Like, if I have to watch the kid that grew up in Maine rooting for the Celtics play for the Milwaukee Bucks for his whole career, I'm going to die. I can't do it. Anyway, so
well, tied for actually, there's 3 teams that are tied for the worst record in the league right now. It's the Bucks, it's the Jazz, and it's the Philadelphia 76ers.
please go to the Jazz, Cooper. Please. It'll be so peaceful out there in Utah, please. Oh, please do. Anyway, no. Can you imagine him being on the Sixers? Like, can you imagine the Sixers just catastrophically
Well,
going so bad this year that their starting lineup next year is Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, I don't know, whoever plays the 3, Cooper Flag, and Joel Embiid? I'd be like, oh God, please no. Like, I can't do it.
and they would still figure out a way to screw it up.
Well, yeah, Joel Embiid would miss the entire season for
Again.
some reason. Yeah, but anyway, no. So getting back to the premise here, in a lot of everything we just talked about says that the Cavs may be sustainable because they're playing this conference every day basically,
I'm
and they're
not
just
checking
whooping
the
on all these
injury.
bad teams. But I think the Warriors, the way that they play, um, their system, their coach, their best player. I think it's all sustainable. I think that their defense is really, really fantastic. I saw it last night firsthand. I thought, oh well, they haven't played anybody. Who cares? No, they made it really hard on the Celtics. Granted, again, without Jaylen Brown and without Kristaps Porzingis, so you could take it all with a grain of salt. But at the same time, they made it really hard. The Celtics do not turn the ball over. 10 turnovers in the first half because they just I mean it was really difficult to score on them. They have a great mix of young and veteran players that I think really benefits them and helps them out. And I know, like, Brandon Podziemski, like, who cares? But he was a really big part of that team last year, and he hasn't played due to injury. At least he hasn't played recently due to injury. So, and some of their games that they played in this run, Steph Curry was not even out there. He missed 3 games with an ankle injury. So this is, this is a team that I actually legitimately think can sustain it. One, because their metrics show that it's not all about the shots that they're making. It's not like they're just going on this crazy run from 3 point land and that's why they're beating teams. No, they're beating teams on the defensive end and they're also shooting a whole bunch. But Andrew
Yeah,
Wiggins, go ahead.
but that's how they won. That's how they made 5 straight trips to the finals. Was why we loved watching them. Or at least I personally did. Why they were one of the best offenses. They had one of the best defenses in the
Absolutely.
league
Klay
year in year
Thompson
out
was
for those
an
5 years.
elite perimeter defender. Absolutely. One of the best defenders at his position in the NBA. Andre Iguodala was another one of the best.
Ooh,
Draymond Green, we all know how great he was. And then most of their centers that they had out there were only there for defense because, you know,
yep, that's all I needed.
who's the guy that Andrew Bogut, like, you think he's gonna drop 20 points a night? Like, no. So, or Jordan Bell, like, do you remember Jordan Bell? I remember Jordan Bell. Shout out Jordan Bell. I hope you're doing good, sir. You were awesome. I liked you a lot. Anyway, point being, I think that they're sustainable, and I think because Andrew Wiggins has to play a huge role in this team, and he has not played well at all. He just hasn't. And so if he can step up, this team's going to have a whole new level because now you're going to have Steph Curry you got to worry about. Then you're going to have to worry about, the young guys and Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, who are very athletic and very fun to watch. And you're going to have to worry about Andrew Wiggins. And then you're going to have to worry about Buddy Hield just coming up and shooting, 60% from three and scoring 25 points off the bench every night. Because there's no more perfect a system for Buddy Hield than the Warriors. And he could just run around and run around and run around and have 2.5 inches of space and chuck up threes. That is Buddy Hield's dream. He was wanting to do that ever since he was I think he was at Oklahoma. Where did he go to school? I forget.
I was looking at his page just a second ago. He
No,
went to
I'm thinking. I think Trae Young went to Oklahoma. I think I'm getting him and Trae Young mixed up.
no,
Where did he go?
Trey was Texas.
Trae Young wasn't Tech. No, Trae Young was he Texas? No,
Yeah, Trey was Texas.
really? I have to look this up now.
Um, yeah, you're right with Buddy. Buddy was in Oklahoma. Buddy went to
Trae
Oklahoma.
Young's college was the University of Oklahoma. I'm not tripping. They both went to Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and the only reason I remember that he went to Oklahoma, or that I thought I remembered he went to Oklahoma, was because there was there's this clip that somebody was super upset because the year that Trae Young was at Oklahoma, they were like 500 and they still made the tournament instead of Oklahoma State, who like had lost like 5 games. Because basically, like, Oklahoma got voted in because people wanted to see Trae Young play and it was like, oh dear God. Anyway, regardless of all that, um, I think the Warriors have enough versatility to, if they stay healthy, sustain this at a higher level than the Cavs will. So I'm going to definitely go with the Warriors on that one. Okay, so next. Oh, go
A
ahead.
couple more fun facts about Buddy Hield here too. I found it interesting. He's shooting 9 3-pointers a game right now.
Yep.
That's his average in 8 games. Um, His shooting percentage, he's making half of them.
Yep.
That's not sustainable. But if he doesn't all of a sudden just drop ice cold to like 31%, it'll still average out and they'll be fine.
Sure.
But that's his, that's by far his best shooting percentage from 3 point land, and it's his third most attempts from the 3 point line since he was in Sacramento. So I mean,
Yeah.
If the Warriors can get the Sacramento version of Buddy Hield off of their bench, there can be a fun team to watch once again. I think.
Absolutely. And here's the I actually think it is sustainable. I'm gonna give you a point here that I think can prove that his shooting 50% from three is sustainable. Number one, he's playing on the Warriors, who is it's just the perfect system for him, like I said. Number two, if you were to go back through the time machine, my friend, take last year out because he barely played. For some godforsaken reason, the Philadelphia 76ers said Buddy Hield wasn't good enough to play on their roster. Just stupid. When he played in playoff games, he was excellent. I don't understand what they were looking at. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. Okay. Go back, take last year out. Take the previous 5 years. Who made the most three-point shots in the NBA? Every single person in the world said Steph Curry, and they would all be wrong because the answer is Buddy Hield. That's how good of a three-point shooter Buddy Hield is. No one cares. No one looked at it and cared because he played in Sacramento. But Buddy Hield was so good at shooting three-pointers that he made more three-pointers than any human walking earth, and no one cared. And now, he's standing next to the guy that everyone thought made more threes than anybody. This is going to be somebody that it's going to unlock a whole new level for him. And at the same time, whenever a guy is making a lot of money like Buddy Hield was, he's put up some stats, he leaves. He bets on himself. He goes somewhere else. And he sits on the bench on a good team. Not even a great team. A good team that was the 7 seed. And he couldn't play. You know what that tells me? That tells me, oh boy, Buddy Hield might be in trouble. Think about it. Lonnie Walker was the 6th man in Brooklyn last year. He's not even good enough to play in the NBA right now, according to everybody. He is in, like, Taiwan somewhere playing. He signed overseas, which to me is absurd. But if Buddy Hield is looking at a guy who played 18 minutes a night in the NBA and he can't get a job, what the heck's going to happen to me? I didn't play. And I'm a lot more expensive than that guy. I was making $20 million a year. What am I going to do? So he signs a prove-it deal with the Warriors. And now it's all or nothing for Buddy Hield. He doesn't care about winning a championship. I mean, he probably does. But at the end of the day, the thing he's going to care about most is, I got to survive, man. I'm 30 years old, or he's getting close to 30 years old, because he was old when he was drafted. He was like 24 when he got drafted. Something like that. So, like, he's not a young man right now. He's in his 30s. So this is it for Buddy Hield. If he can't make this work, if the guy who shoots a bunch of threes can't make it work on the team that stereotypically to all fans is the reason why everybody shoots a bunch of threes, then he's done. This is it. Buddy Hield's out of the NBA. Nobody's going to want him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think it's sustainable. I think he's got the motivation to make it sustainable. I think he's in the system to make it sustainable. And Steve Kerr is sitting there going, why would I pay Klay Thompson $40 million when I can pay Buddy Hield $2 million to do exactly what Klay Thompson should have been doing for the last 2 years and couldn't? That's what's happening. So everybody's motivated to make it work if you're the Warriors. I think it is sustainable for Buddy Hield to make 50% from three. I think actually he will. I'm going to make a bold prediction right now. Buddy Hield, by the end of the year, if he doesn't catastrophically get hurt, will finish the season above 50% from three. I think so.
Okay. When his best year was 43%?
Yep.
That'll be interesting.
I think, and if I'm off by like 2% and he ends up with like 48.7, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I'll be like, the point's still the same, guys, okay? He's still ridiculous. All right, moving on to question number 3. Who has been the bigger disappointment so far this season? I find it kind of funny that I'm asking this question because it seems a bit more obvious now with the last couple of days after I wrote this. Who is the bigger
My
disappointment right now? Well, go ahead.
my answer is still the same from when you sent me this question on Monday. It's the
Fair
Milwaukee
enough.
Bucks.
So, who
You
is the
have
bigger disappointment right now? The Milwaukee Bucks or the Denver Nuggets? Go.
Yeah, it's the Milwaukee. Same
Yeah.
answer from a few days ago. And Denver beating Oklahoma City, kind of like what you were just alluding to, does kind of put a nice little feather in the cap for their
Oh
comparison.
yeah.
Milwaukee has won a single game in 7 tries. I'm actually pulling them up right now because I don't know who they've played. I'm curious to see who they've played. Obviously, we talked about them. You know, they beat Philadelphia to start the season, but then they proceeded to lose to Chicago by 11, lost to Brooklyn by 13, lost to Boston, lost to Memphis by 23, and then lost 2 straight games to Cleveland.
Yeah, and this is something that I've wanted to say for a while, and I haven't had a chance to say it on recording, so I'm going to get it right now. So buckle in, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to get a 45-second Tyler rant. Um, I thought that when the Celtics would won a championship, there would be like a little bit of a let off for me on how angry it makes me when certain teams play a certain way against the Celtics in the regular season. It did not. I still feel so frustrated and angry when I see a team like the Indiana Pacers, who the announcers all said, hey, these guys are really struggling. This is not the same team as last year. They're 27th in the league in pace when last year they were first. Just say, we're playing the Celtics, let's try now. Wah! And like they just immediately go back to being amazing, like nothing ever happened, and then 2 days later they go right back to sucking. That's what the Milwaukee Bucks did. They literally lost to Chicago, then lost to Brooklyn, and then almost went into Boston and beat Boston because they started trying. And it's like, dude, what? Stop. Why are you? Why? This it drives
Well, I
me
mean,
nuts so bad because to me, what that does as a fan, again, I understand we won a championship. It's just the regular season. Who gives a rip? Let anybody do whatever the heck they want. Who cares? But for me, you know what? Every once in a while, I don't want the Celtics to have to go into overtime or win a game by 2. I'd like to just see them win by 40, like they did against Atlanta. I didn't. Guess what? They beat Atlanta by a billion. It was never close. I didn't worry about that the whole game. I just sat there. I was eating my snacks. I was watching it. I was having a great time. I was vibing. This is great. And I'm sitting there going, oh, Milwaukee stinks right now. We're going to have our way with them. And then suddenly just everything clicks. They're all perfect. Everybody's making shots. Their defense is unbelievable. And you're like, dude, please, I can't take this. I'm losing my mind. Or Indiana, it's like, oh, this
59
isn't,
points from Giannis and Damian.
yeah, like, oh, this isn't the same team as last year. Pascal Siakam makes every single shot he takes. T.J. McConnell, who's averaging 5 points a night, scores like 26. Like it's like, dude, I can't deal with this. Freaking, what's his name? Benedict Mathurin was averaging 7 points a night, and he scored like 28 against the Celtics. He couldn't miss. He couldn't do anything, and it's like I can't deal with it. So it's driving me nuts that this happens against every team, almost every team. Obviously, Atlanta notwithstanding. Atlanta just stinks no matter who they face, I guess.
Sorry,
Um,
Atlanta.
Sorry, Atlanta. Hey, you know Atlanta's. You said they were up there, right? You said they were like the 4 seed or something. A 5 seed, yeah, great, good for them. So yeah.
No.
Anywho, that was my rant. So sorry about that. But yeah, I think it's got to be Milwaukee, right? I mean, there's not even a. To be fair, I wrote this question, earlier this week when it wasn't quite such a big disparity between the two teams. Um, but yeah, I don't know what's going on in Milwaukee, man. Like, I can't even I can't even pinpoint. I mean, it has to
To me,
be
to
defense.
me, when you're still starting Brooke Lopez at your center,
Oh, be careful with what you're saying here, man. Brook Lopez is good. He's been
to me
he.
when you're still starting Brooke Lopez, I don't know, man. I
Listen,
don't know.
Brook Lopez is He's a survivor, man. I love that guy. I wish
Literally,
this.
he's
I
been
wish
playing
we
for
could get him.
15
I wish the
years.
Celtics could get him because he would, dude. If he would thrive so hard in this on the Celtics system, and the Celtics fans would love Brook Lopez if he played for us. But instead, he's gone to the enemy. He's been there for like a billion years, and he won't stop
15
blocking every time we try to make a layup. It drives me nuts. Every layup attempt. It doesn't matter if he started at half court. He's gonna somehow find a way to just like Michael Jordan from Space Jam, extend arm all the way across the court. Just like it's ridiculous. Anyway, no, I like Brook Lopez. That's the point.
Well, I mean, Middleton retired, so right, Middleton or he went
No,
elsewhere.
Middleton's still there. He's just hurt again.
Oh, I thought he was. I thought he was gone.
No, he's still there. He's just injured. Yeah, that's one thing that I don't get because I'm pretty sure, unless I'm completely off my rocker, I'm gonna look it up. That they
Oh yeah.
signed him to an extension this offseason.
Hmm.
Miss
Must
Middleton
look it up.
extension, July 6th, 2023. So that would have been this offseason.
Yep.
All-star forward Chris Middleton re-signs with the Bucks on a 3-year, $102 million contract. They paid Chris Middleton $35 million a year to not play. He's not played for like 3 years, dude. And they were like, yeah, that's good enough. That's crazy. That's crazy. Fantastic when he plays. Don't get me wrong. The only reason the Milwaukee Bucks had any chance in the playoffs last year was because of Chris Middleton. He was the only reason that they were any good. Dame stunk. Giannis was hurt. Chris Middleton's the only thing that kept them afloat. But he's out there for 18 games a season. Like, you can't pay 35. You can't pay $2 million a game. That's it's ridiculous. That's more than your attendance figures probably bring in, for those games. I can't. It's insane. But yeah, no, it's got to be Milwaukee. But you have any more thoughts on that?
I mean, I think on the other side, and talking about Denver, I thought it was interesting to put Denver there, but then I was like, oh, their record, I think at the time was like 3 and something. But I'm like, to me, it's this for the reason that I believed in Denver, the same reason why I'm more disappointed in Milwaukee. It's Milwaukee has two premier players in Giannis and Dame, and while Nuggets only have one in Jokic, Jokic is one of the better players in the league right now. One of the harder players to stop in the league. That's why I was almost like I gave them a little more grace than Milwaukee because it's like Milwaukee's got two great all stars,
Sure.
and this was supposed to be that Dame was supposed to be the answer for Milwaukee. Like I don't know what Giannis's contract is. I'm gonna look up in here in a second, but it's like if I'm Giannis, I'm like I'm ready to leave Milwaukee at this point.
He signed an
You know,
extension very recently. I don't think it was this off season, but I think it was the last off season. So he's there for another 3 or 4 years. And so is Dame as well, obviously, because he signed that big contract extension with Portland, and then that off season he got traded. So,
right?
he's there for a while. Middleton's now there for a while. Lopez, I don't know. I don't know if he's still making like that 18 or 20 mil that he was, or if they signed him to a different restructured contract now. I don't know. But yeah, and
Oh
Bobby
yeah,
Portis is making 10 or 12 million dollars a year too. Connaughton's making 5 or 6. So there's a lot of big money guys.
yeah. Giannis is signed to the team for another additional 2 seasons after this season, and then he has a player option for $62 billion
Yeah, 62
in
million is insane.
2027.
Yeah, that's about right. But again, it's difficult to kind of pinpoint exactly what's going wrong for Milwaukee. And the reason why I put Denver at the time that I did was because yes, they were 3-4 at the time that I wrote the question, but one of those wins came in overtime against the Raptors, and one of those wins came in overtime against Brooklyn. So even in their wins, they were not playing well against not good teams. I don't care what Yeah, Brooklyn's the third seed. No, they suck. So go ahead, play Boston or Cleveland and see what happens. If you're Brooklyn, they're gonna get beat by 77 points if they play the Celtics at full strength right now. So don't at me with that. But yeah, I don't really know exactly what's going wrong with the Bucks, but yeah, they have to be the biggest disappointment in the entire NBA this year. I can see why the Sixers are struggling. They haven't had Paul George or Joel Embiid for pretty much the entirety of the thing, and now they just lost Maxey, so it's a whole thing. I can see why they're struggling a bit because not all this is what I don't understand about like people that follow the NBA and like these analysts that kind of go on TV and they're like, "Yep, the Sixers are going to be great." So you replace Tobias Harris with Paul George. Great, it's obviously an upgrade. There's no disputing that. Your bench is what? Kyle Lowry, a guy who played overseas for the last 5 years, and Gershon Yabusele.
So that 5 times fast.
No, I can't, dude. He was a Celtic. He was a Celtic for like 6 seasons, and I couldn't say it fast. So no way. I liked him a lot. I wish it had worked out in Boston. But anyway, so your bench not that great, right? Like it's just not that great. So you don't have a ton of depth, and you're seeing that right now because without Joel Embiid and without Paul George, you're really struggling to put any kind of positive product out on the court here. It, you have to look at team depth too. That's why I liked the Clippers so much last year. It's because yeah, without Kawhi, it's tough, but at the same time, they had a really deep team with a lot of decent players that could step in and be okay. But the Sixers don't have that this year.
Here's your hit list for Philadelphia right now. The second leading points getter for Philadelphia, Kelly Oubre Jr.
I love
Who's a
Kelly
role
Oubre.
player.
He's great.
He was a role player pretty much his whole career, a couple years ago in Charlotte. I really liked him in Charlotte. Wish they could actually hang on to him.
Sure. He's a
Number
guy that could
four,
score 20 points a night if you let him. I like him a lot. I wouldn't consider him in like the bench role. He usually
yeah.
starts for them.
Well, he's starting. It
Yeah.
looks like he started all 7 games he's been a part of.
Yeah.
Number 4 on the scoring, coming in at 10.7 points a game, Caleb Martin.
Oh my God,
So
Caleb
in
Martin! I forgot about Caleb Martin. He had a good game last night too. I was looking. I watched part of it. He played well.
35.
Caleb Martin, my God. Yeah, that was another. Yeah, I will say. So I forgot about Caleb Martin. He's the guy who starts at the 3 for the Sixers. So can you imagine that starting five of frickin' Tyrese Maxey, right? Paul George at the 2, Caleb Martin at the 3, Cooper Flag at the 4, Joel Embiid at the 5, Kelly Oubre coming off the bench. Please, please, just end it all. I don't want it.
The guy who's been starting at center for them is Andre Drummond.
Hey, Andre Drummond's a good player. Drummond's a good player. I like him.
He was very vastly underrated for a long time in Detroit.
Absolutely. So yeah, he's good, but like offensively, he's a nothing burger offensively.
Yeah.
So
there's 4 players that are averaging over 16 points a game that are averaging double-digit figures in points per game right now.
Yeah, and that's just not good enough. It's just not. So their depth is going to not be great. Now, obviously, when Maxey comes back and when Embiid comes back, Drummond will slide to the bench, and I assume Lowry's probably starting at the 1 for them moving forward. We don't know because he just got injured. We haven't seen them play since Maxey got hurt. But I'm assuming it's going to be Kyle Lowry, so he'll go back to the bench. But even then, your bench of Gershon Yabusele, all right, he had a good game last night because I needed the offense, but other than that, I'm not sure what he's going to give you consistently. Andre Drummond, who's a nothing burger on defense and on offense. He's just basically a rebounder at this point. Who else did I say? Even now, I don't even remember now.
Caleb Martin, our favorite player ever.
I think he's probably going to start. I feel like probably, right? Is he coming off the bench for them?
Caleb starts.
Okay.
Yeah,
so he's probably going to start. Even when they come back, he'll probably have Maxey, Paul George, Caleb Martin. I don't know, whoever you feel like starting at the 4, I guess. Is Yabusele starting? That's fun. And then Embiid at the 5. So I don't know. I just think their depth's not going to get it done. Same with the Knicks, by the way. My God, their bench is awful. Their bench is horrible. Like, I saw them play at full strength against the Celtics. I looked at their bench and I went, the only guy that's any good on this bench is Miles McBride. That's the only one who's any good. Their whole bench is poo. Precious Achua? Really? Like that's who you're gonna throw out there against Kristaps Porzingis? Yeah, good luck. Like it's it's just silly. So, you have to look at that too when you're picking the best teams. The Bucks have no depth. The Knicks have no depth. The Sixers have more depth than those two teams, but not a whole lot of depth. So I look at teams, when I look at teams that could be really good, I look at teams that have a lot of depth, like the Indiana Pacers, like the Orlando Magic before Paolo got hurt. Like that's teams that I look at that I think, oh, like they've got two guys that come off the bench that if they started on other teams could drop probably 15 or 20 points a night. If Peyton Pritchard was starting on another team, boy howdy, he'd be 30 points a night. He could like he could because he's that good. So regardless. So yeah, it's got to be the Bucks. The Bucks are bad. I I don't think it's gonna last the rest of the season. I just can't see the Bucks being the worst team in the NBA. I can't. I can't envision it with Giannis and Dame. There's no way that you could be the basement of the NBA when you got those two players on your team. You're telling me that there's no offense to your Charlotte Hornets. I can't. You're telling me that LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges is going to be a winninger duo this year than Giannis and Dame. I literally can't fathom that in my mind. So, or no offense to our Pist or our not our Pistons fans because Pistons are actually good on paper. I actually really like them. The Raptors fans, Scotty Barnes and Jakob Pertl are your
Hurdle.
or RJ Barrett, maybe you throw him in there instead. No, like come on, like you can't tell me that they're not going to be worse than Giannis and Dame put together. I'm sorry, I just can't. I can't envision it.
There's got to be somewhere where I could put like just $2 down on saying more wins when you're talking about more wins of a deal, and we compare Giannis and Dame versus Lamelo Ball, and Miles and Bridges, and at the end of the year,
Who has
I
more
would I
wins?
want to
Dude,
take
you
the
will be a
Hornets guys
millionaire if you
just
put
out of
$2
spite.
down on that. Dude, can you imagine if like July 7th, like we just like off season started, who's gonna have the worst record in the NBA? And all the way like down at the bottom is like the Celtics at plus 18 million or whatever. They have the worst record in the NBA. Right above them, Milwaukee. And you're just like, yep, Milwaukee's gonna have the worst record in the NBA. And somehow that ends up being right, and you're like, yeah, I'm the Nostradamus of basketball, guys. That's how this goes. I am the king. So no.
I would take the Hornets deal right now.
Oh, hey man, I love me some Brandon Miller. I'll tell you that. I am a
He
big
did have a
Brandon
game winner
Miller
the other night.
believer, dude.
He did have a game winner the other night.
He did. Yep, he had a Derek White-esque game winner on a tip-in, except it wasn't in the Eastern Conference Finals, and about 18 people saw it. So, you know, I was one of the 18. I was one of the 18. I was there. I was like, hey, that guy's awesome. I love that guy. Anyway, okay. So moving on to the next question. Got two more questions for you, Dan. Um, so we've talked a lot about the West, mentioned a lot of teams. Two teams that we have not talked about in the West: the Houston Rockets and the San Antonio Spurs. Where do they fit in the Western Conference? Are you believers that these guys can make a playoff run, or do you think they're not quite ready yet?
Right now, I would say Houston probably has a little bit better chance of making a playoff run, being like that number 9, number 10 team in the West. Just kind of looking, their competition. I think it's who their competition is going to be. Honestly, like obviously, I think Houston and San Antonio, um, they'll have some. I think it's you know it's hard for me because I mean it's like I want the Spurs to be good just because they got Wemby. They decided Chris Paul to kind of help give Wemby some seasoning, and we've already had some great little plays from the between the two of them. But I mean that team is building so there's still a lot of building big pieces to bring in to build a long term team like we used to see. It's this isn't Wemby isn't Tim Duncan coming in to play alongside David Robinson for a few years until he takes the reign, and they're not going to find another Ginobili and Parker like they did diamonds in the rough, um, you know, internationally
Trey
because
Jones, the best offensive player on the team according to our stats last year. Dan, you remember that? I was like, "There's no way he had a better net rating than Wemby. There's no way. I hate everything."
oh, it's crazy.
Anywho,
The West is going to be tough. I think it's I think the Rockets were another 12-game winning streak away from making the 10th seed, I think, last year.
another 12. So they were 12 games out of the 10 seed. That's not very good, Dan. I would think.
No, but no, I swear we were looking at when we were doing some stuff.
No,
together
they were
last
close.
year.
They only missed it by like a
The
game or
last
two.
three,
Yeah.
yeah, like the last 3 weeks of the season, all of a sudden they just like imploded again.
Yeah.
When they were just like right there,
Yep.
they almost unseated LA or Golden State,
Yep.
and that would have been bonkers. But all of a sudden they're like, we don't care anymore. We don't want a playoff spot anymore. Okay.
All right.
So
Take your lottery pick. Here you go.
Yeah. So I mean, I think a lot of it's going to depend on what does Memphis do. If the Clippers can't find their groove, I mean, Kawhi's not. Actually, I'm trying to think. Has Kawhi played this year?
No.
He's played.
No, he's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna play for most of the year, to be honest, dude.
So I mean, if he doesn't come back, so that's basically Harden's team. Another team that's a Harden.
James
team.
Harden and Norman Powell. That's your two best players. Yeah.
And so I mean, I feel like Houston was in that similar situation with Harden not that long ago.
Yeah, except at least they had prime James Harden. This is 37-year-old James Harden, who is just not the same player. So yeah, it's even worse for the Clippers for sure.
So to think of a team like the Clippers has been a perennial mid seed in the playoffs for a long time. I don't. I mean, honestly, I'm actually going to look really now when the last time they might have missed the playoffs. We're just going to look that up really quick, but
yeah.
So to me, if we drop the Clippers out, well, who replaces them in the playoffs? I mean, Memphis didn't make the playoffs last year. Houston didn't make it. So I mean, I think those two teams are obviously prime candidates to make that.
Absolutely.
Okay, the Clippers didn't. Oh, the Clippers didn't make it in 21 or 17. But I mean, since 2011, they've missed the playoffs twice. So I mean, again, perennial playoff team.
Yep.
To where they're probably going to be lucky to make the play-in this year. So and honestly, the Lakers just lost Anthony Davis out there. They look like they're going to be strong at the start of the season.
Yeah, and that's why I don't have a Lakers question. I don't have a Lakers question for you today, but I'm glad you brought that up because I am so unbelievably vomitingly sick and tired of hearing so many talking heads and analysts saying, "Oh, look how good the Lakers are! Oh my God, I can't believe how good they are! Look, they're going to be so much better than everybody!" Guess what? Anthony Davis gets hurt. That's how it always happens. Every single year he gets hurt. Why does no one ever factor this in? Do you think that just magically he's going to play 82 games and a 16-game playoff run with no issues whatsoever? Every time the Lakers get momentum, AD says, "Ouch. I want to not play today and tomorrow and 7 months from now." That's how it works every single year, and it's nauseating when people sit here and say, dude, there's still people that say Anthony Davis is the third best player in the NBA. He can't be the third best player in the NBA if he's not on the floor.
Yeah.
He just can't. I'm sorry. I love Anthony Davis. I was the guy in 2017 when he was on the Pelicans. When somebody said, "Who's the best player in the NBA?" I said, "LeBron James." "Who's the second best player in the NBA?" "Anthony Davis." That was me. That was me saying that. Because that's how much of a believer I was in Anthony Davis. I love Anthony Davis. But there's just no way around the fact that the guy can barely play more than 50 games in a season.
Yep. Actually, I was going to ask you, How many times do you think he's played at least 70 games in his career? And in the last 12 years, how many times do you think he's caught
I
70
feel
goals?
like zero, honestly. He may have done it once. 3 times? Good for him. Okay, great. But
Last year was one of them, and then 2 years with the Pelicans. Um,
yeah,
yeah, and
he can't. He can't. Last year was about as healthy as he's ever going to be at this point in his career. 70 games, right? You said he's
and
played
they
70
still were
games?
only the number 9 team.
They brought in Brawny. They're going to be so good. Knock it
He just got
off.
sent to the G League.
Yeah, knock it off. Like, they're going to stink again. Look, dude. Okay. So I
I'm
was
glad
going
we
to
got
do,
that moment. Move on.
yeah. So I just did, I don't know if you've seen my series that I've done on this channel, Reload, Retool, Rebuild. I've done that. I've now done 3 episodes. The actual clip of the episode is going to come out, I believe, tomorrow, if I remember correctly. Tomorrow or Saturday. I can't remember. But if you haven't seen the full podcast, Dan, check it out. And if you haven't seen the full podcast, check it out either, guys. If not, see the clip. I did the LA Clippers. And in episode 2, when I did the Miami Heat, I talked about, maybe it wasn't in that episode, maybe it was just on a podcast somewhere, that I said that I was going to do the Lakers as my next team instead of the Clippers. But they started playing really well. They were rolling. They were beating the crap out of teams. And I said, you know what? My bias is not really going to be conducive to what I'm seeing right now. So I actually think I'm going to hold off. And I'm going to wait a few weeks to do this until I see some more sample size. And literally, like 3 days later, Anthony Davis got hurt. And now they're like an average team again. And I'm like, there you go. Like, and we're back. It didn't even take long at all. And back to the Clippers. Like I said, I just did an episode on the Clippers. And I predicted they would not make the playoffs this year. They would not make the play-in this year. They would only win 38 games. Because I said Kawhi Leonard, I'm pretty sure I gave an exact number. I think I said 23 games is what he would play this year. That was my prediction. He would play 23 games. They'd miss the playoffs. And so for me, the Pelicans are out. I don't think the Pelicans are making the playoffs without DeJounte Murray and with a CJ McCollum who just does not look like the same player this year than he did last year. So I think they're out. I think that they're not making the playoffs or the play-in. And I also don't think the Clippers. So that leaves 2 teams that are out that were in last year.
Yep.
So what does that leave you? That leaves you with Memphis is the obvious one. I think they're making the playoffs, and I don't think it's going to be even a difficult task for them to make the playoffs. And I think that second team that's going to make it is going to be the Houston Rockets. I believe in the Houston Rockets. I believed in them last year, and they were just way too inconsistent. Jalen Green, if Jalen Green played like Jalen Green can play for the entire season, they would have 100% made the playoffs. But he decided to take like 2 months off and be stinky for 2 months. So we'll see if that happens this year. But they are, unfortunately, still wildly inconsistent. They look unbelievable one night, and they look terrible the next. And that's what happens when you have a really young team sometimes. But what also happens when you have a really young team is they can get hot real quick. And sometimes they don't understand the bright lights that are happening. And so I think if you actually get to the Houston Rockets in the playoffs, you might have some trouble. Because Sengun is a legit player. I almost said Jabari Parker. Jabari Smith is a really, really nice player. He's not developed into the, because that draft was Paolo, Jabari Smith, and Chet Holmgren. Those were the 3 guys that everybody was kind of debating who was going to be the number 1 pick. And it ended up obviously being Paolo went number 1, which I think was the right choice. Look at how good he is, right? Chet went number 2, and Jabari Smith went number 3. And it was one of those things where we're like, okay, which one of these guys is going to be the worst? And I think clearly the answer is Jabari Smith. He just has not developed into what either Chet or Paolo have been able to develop into. He's still good. He's just not, all-star caliber or anything like that. Fred VanVleet's really good. Jalen Green's really good. You got Acer Thompson coming off your bench. You got Cam Whitmore coming off your bench. There's some really, really fun guys out there in Houston. I believe in that team quite a bit. But, again, they are really inconsistent. I don't particularly think that they are going to be a team that is going to make a lot of noise in the West. I think that there's too many good teams in the West. I think they're just going to end up being like a play-in team or something like that. But I think that they could get better. I was really hoping to see more growth. I really was. I was really hoping to see more growth out of Jalen Green. I really like Fred Van Fleet, but we all know what he is and what he isn't at this point in his career. He's not going to suddenly start scoring 30 points a night. He's a 19 point per game fella, and that's what he is. Um,
Yeah.
and it's tough for me to kind of really think on it past that because I just think they're not good enough to compete with some of the top teams in the West. And then as far as the Spurs go, I don't think they're ready.
Hmm.
I think that they're still 2 years away, which I know is not what any NBA fan that likes Wembanyama wants to hear. They want to see Wemby in the playoffs. I get it. Me too. I'm right there with you. I'm just telling you the reality of the situation is Victor Wembanyama is a phenomenal player. He's going to be the best player in the NBA for the next 15 years. Once he hits that spot, he's not giving it up. The problem is that everybody else on his team is bad. That's just the reality. And it's not even that they're all bad. It's just that they all came into the league right here as like halfway decent players, and none of them got any better. And none of them are gonna get any better.
And I'm sorry, but when you're starting, not that Harrison Barnes is a bad player, but when Harrison Barnes is in your starting lineup with Chris Paul, I mean, if that's not saying that there's a team, that's a team in massive transition. I don't
Yeah,
know what does.
yeah, that's
And
uh, that's
that's
not
the
great.
unfortunate part. It's like if this was 5 years ago, Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes are like, oh yeah, that's a play-in team, maybe competing for the sixth seed.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No, I agree with you.
our favorite player from the Spurs, Trey Jones, hasn't even played yet. So
Oh boy. Um, well, yeah. Again, I don't think they're ready. I like the additions of Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul, and then obviously I love where the team's going. This team's gonna have such a bright future. They have so many draft picks, and they have so many tradable contracts that they're gonna make some big splashes. Um, but who knows? Maybe they get lucky in the lottery. They get Cooper Flag. Now you got Wemby and Cooper Flag to build around for the next 10 years. That would be delicious. Because, the Celtics could still go to the finals every year. They would just lose. So it would just be, it'd be fun. Um, but yeah, no. I like the Spurs, just not this year. Alrighty,
yeah,
sir. Last question for you here. We talked very heavily about the 76ers often in this podcast, so my last question is going to be regarding the Sixers. And I think it's the elephant in the room, right? Without Joel Embiid, and now without Tyrese Maxey, is it possible for this team to bounce back and be a top three seed in the East like everybody predicted? Or is there just too much drama, just too many injuries, just too many issues to overcome?
I think too much drama for sure. Embiid is, it's just weird as you touched on earlier. It's like did very well in the Olympics for the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
Did very well. Showed up a lot, and I think that's what I got everybody high in Philadelphia again this year. Um, and Maxi's really coming to his own. The
Sure.
injury to Maxi, I think, is honestly the biggest part here. If he's out for short term, okay. I think the team can survive the drama of Embiid if both George and Maxi play well together and just play well. Um, if you get all three for a majority of the season, that's probably a top six team in the East, maybe a top four. I'd have a hard time putting them above the top four, even into the top four. But I think you're getting out of the play-in tournament if you get at least 50 games with all three of them on the court at the same time.
Hmm.
I think if Embiid gets keeps spouting off or he gets hurt again, and big men, their knees, their ankles, their feet. I mean, those are easy sore spots for guys like that. I mean, he has constant troubles, with injuries, unfortunately, because I mean, he was supposed to be a force in this league. So some unfortunate untapped talent there. Um, but I mean, and honestly, I don't know if I trust Philly if all three of them do get to play on the court together, because it's like
Yeah.
Doc's still coaching there, right? I think no,
Yep, he sure is. He's still out
poor Doc,
there
poor
slinging
Doc
3
Rivers.
1 leads like they're going out of style, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, I think if the team could somehow get away from him, Embiid or away from the Embiid drama, I think Maxi and George, that'd be a fun combo. I think George is a great veteran to kind of bring in someone into the help Maxi realize his potential in the league. Um, but again, kind of thing that you've talked about is like, do they have a lot of depth? They don't have a lot of depth. It's if Indiana, we're not, we're pretty sure they're a top four team in the league. Knicks, I think, will fall in that top four, top six. So I mean, so you got Boston, Cleveland, Indiana, maybe the Knicks. What happens with the Nets right now? Do does Milwaukee come back like we were talking earlier? Do the Pistons make noise? If Philadelphia doesn't get at least 50 games with these guys together, they might be right back in the play-in tournament. Part of me almost wants to go really hot take and say they don't make even the play-in tournament, but I think just the way the East is, it they still at least make the play-in tournament. But I mean, that's a team that's like, do we really want to make the play-in tournament and have to go play Boston or Cleveland in the
Yeah,
first round
like you got to play Boston in the
again?
first round, and you're just like, ah, oh, God, we're gonna die. It's
Again,
yeah,
it's yeah, it's weird because I mean, we were supposed to trust the process in Philadelphia, and they were supposed to have these players. Ben Simmons was not at all what we thought he was going to be. I think he's still in the league somehow.
he's on
Um,
those good old Brooklyn Nets. Hey, who knows, man? The Brooklyn Nets are doing better than we thought. Maybe it's because um, our good old buddy Ben Simmons is killing it this year. I'm gonna look up his stats real quick.
I'll see if I can beat you to it.
You probably can
Yeah,
because I'm doing it on my phone and I can't. I'm recording my screen, so I literally cannot do it quickly at all. So
that's fine.
yeah, you're
I'll bring it up.
probably gonna beat
Um,
me to it here.
oh wow, Dennis Schroeder still plays.
Yeah, dude, he's probably their top scorer. No, he's not their top scorer. Cam Thomas is their top. He's probably their number two scorer, knowing Dennis Schroeder.
He
To be
is
honest, yeah,
9,
exactly.
20
Yeah,
points.
he played for the Celtics for 78 minutes, and I went, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean this has got to be like he's got to play in like half the league now. Yeah,
Feels like it.
Ben Simmons is averaging 6 points a game, 6 assists and 6 rebounds though.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I don't know what that says.
All right. Well, we're going statistics.
You
Ben
flip it
Simmons,
over.
6 points, playing 25 minutes a night, and he's played and started in 6 of the 8 games that they've played. So he's not playing half bad. Well, I hope he doesn't. I hope things work out for him.
Is 6 points a game a career high average for him?
Oh God, no, 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 dude. I'm pretty sure he was averaging 20 points a night at one point. Pretty sure in Philly, I feel like he was like an 18 point a night, 9 assist, 8 rebound
Philly,
guy.
the best he ever got was 16.
16,
Close
okay.
to
16, okay. That's fair. Yeah, man. But hey, Chicago's playing halfway decent too. Their record's not great, but they
I
are
can't
playing.
forget
But
about Chicago over there.
hey, man, they're playing a
Chicago
lot
ought to
of
forget the
good
team.
teams
Okay,
really tough.
I mean, I have a question for you, but I
Fire
don't
away.
know if you want to if you had any thoughts more
I
on this.
do, but ask your
Yeah.
question first.
Oh no, go. I'll
Okay.
get your thoughts this way, then I'll ask this question.
Yeah. So okay. No, I don't. I don't think that they could turn it around. Now,
Is this your Boston bias, or is this
no,
like
I don't.
just...
No, it's certainly possible. I'll say this: it's possible, and the only reason it is possible is because the East is so catastrophically bad that I feel like you could trip over your own feet and somehow make a 4 seed right now. Um, you know,
Basically.
but here's the thing: Joel Embiid may be the most hyped up and unfairly respected player that I've ever seen in any sport. I've never seen a guy get so much love from so many people for doing absolutely nothing than Joel Embiid. I've never seen it. It's amazing. I've never seen somebody who's so bad in the playoffs and has done so little to move the game along despite being so talented. And yet everybody unanimously, that's an analyst of the NBA, if you said, name the best center in the NBA, they'd probably say Jokic. Name the second best center in the NBA, all of them would say Joel Embiid. All of them would. And it's crazy to me. This guy is so overrated, overhyped, over just exposed to everyone in the media. Dude, there's Philly fans. There's Philadelphia 76er fans that have been calling for them to trade him for like 4 years. His own fan base doesn't like him most of the time. Like, can we not read into this a little bit? I'm not denying the guy's talent. Obviously, when he is on the floor, he is a menace. He is one of the most talented basketball players, especially at his position, that I have ever seen. And that's not to be questioned in any way, shape, or form. I would be dumb to try and question it. But when you average 45 to 50 games a season, when you choke every year in the playoffs, and I don't just mean your team underperforms, I mean you personally, every single season underperform in the playoffs, outside of last year where Joel Embiid actually played quite well for a couple of games in the playoffs. But you know what nobody remembers? Because they ended up pulling out that win because Tyrese Maxey saved their behinds and ended up winning the game in overtime. Joel Embiid played awful in Game 6 of the first round of the playoffs. Awful. They were down 3-2 in Philly on his home floor, and Joel Embiid scored like 8 points. He was like 3 for 17 from the floor. He turned the ball over 11 times, or something ridiculous. It was so catastrophic. I watched every second of that game, folks. Every second. So nobody could say to me, oh, you have no idea what you're talking about. You didn't even see it. No, I watched every second of that game. He was awful. He was the reason that they should have lost that game. But Tyrese Maxey stepped up and saved his behind, and nobody talks about how if they'd have lost that game, he'd have choked it away again, just like he does every single year. Every year. I cannot stand how people treat Joel Embiid in terms of how much praise they give him, because Jason Tatum, and this is the part of my Boston bias that's going to come out. This part right here. Everything else was just factual. This is where my Boston bias comes out. For years, Jason Tatum, people even said it. This is not just me saying it. Literally, Brian Windhorst came out and said the reason why Jason Tatum does not get MVP votes is because he doesn't perform in the playoffs. That's what he said. He said his lack of performance in the playoffs is hurting his MVP voting. Great. Why is Joel Embiid in the MVP race every year then? Because Jason Tatum at least had been to an NBA Finals, at least had been to like 7 Eastern Conference Finals. Joel Embiid hasn't made it out of the second round of the playoffs in his entire career. And he's been in the league for a lot longer than Jason Tatum, folks. He is 32 years old. He's not a young man. This is not a 25-year-old we're talking about here, like it was for Jason Tatum. This is a 30-plus-year-old man who has been told his whole career he's an alpha, you're the man, you're the best player in the league, you're this, you're that, and he's done nothing with it. Absolutely nothing. So that drives me up a wall. Now, all that being said, I will say I want to comment on what happened the other day. For those of you who are not aware, Joel Embiid has now been suspended for 3 games for getting into an altercation with a reporter in the locker room. The reason why he got into an altercation with a reporter in the locker room is because that exact reporter wrote a story in which he likened and mentioned Joel Embiid's dead brother, and he also name-dropped his son. So, I'm actually going to take Joel Embiid's side on this one. I don't think he should have got suspended for that. And that guy's lucky he's still alive. I'm just going to put, I mean, he is. Because if Joel Embiid is running at me ready to punch me in the face and he lands a punch, I'm not getting up. I'm going to die. His fist is so big, he's going to cave my skull into my brain, and it's going to be it for me. That guy's lucky he's still alive. So the fact that he is still alive is a miracle that Joel Embiid had any kind of self-control. And the fact that people are saying, oh, it's a maturity issue. No, if I had a dead brother and a son, and a reporter was trying to just get at me for my performance, and he name dropped my brother and son, oh, I'm going to want to beat the crap out of that guy. Like, there's no, I'm sorry. I don't care if you call me immature or not. I'm with Joel Embiid 100% on this. There's no doubt in my mind that I mean, do I ever recommend punching somebody in the face? Of course I don't. But I don't blame him. I don't blame him one bit. I don't know if I could have not punched that guy in the face if I saw him in my locker room after what he said about my brother and son. Heck no. Just being honest. So, but with all that being said, the question is, can they turn it around, or is there too much drama to overcome? The answer is there is too much drama to overcome. They could make it, but they'll find a way not to. Because guess what? Now, by the way, Joel Embiid is not suspended right now. Because he doesn't get suspended until he's healthy. So, if he doesn't come back till the All-Star break, then we have to sit there and have a healthy Joel Embiid just sit there watching his team completely malfunction for 3 games while he's healthy because he got suspended for punching a reporter. So, to me, this is way too much to overcome. This is the same story for the Sixers every single year. There's always drama. First it was Ben Simmons. Then it was James Harden. Now, Joel Embiid has successfully gotten all of the problems out of the locker room and has brought in other people, and there's still problems. This is the last thing I'm going to say about this, Dan, and then I'll get to your question here. There was an NFL Films documentary about Terrell Owens, who, unless I'm out of my mind and unless you think I'm nuts, to me, Terrell Owens is the perfect comparison to what Joel Embiid is in the NBA. If you told me who is Joel Embiid's NFL comparison, Terrell Owens. That's who. Unbelievable player. Arguably one of the best, if not the second or third best at his position ever, talent-wise. Talent-wise. However, did nothing with it. And caused problems every single place he went. Now, obviously, Joel Embiid stayed in the same place. Terrell Owens went a bunch of places. But still the same thing. And what they said in that documentary was, there's a guy that went on there and said, I understand that Terrell Owens had problems in San Francisco. And they may not have been his fault. And I understand that he had problems in Dallas. And they may not have been his fault. And I understand that he had problems in Philadelphia. And they may not have been his fault. And I understand that he had problems in Buffalo. And they may not have been his fault. However, if you go to a bunch of places, and every single one of those places you have problems, it may benefit you to look in the mirror and think, I might be the problem. And I think at this point, now I'm not saying Ben Simmons wasn't a problem. Obviously Ben Simmons was a problem. However, at this point, Joel Embiid might have to look himself in the mirror and ask if he's the problem. Because he has denied that he's the problem for 10 years. Because, it's Ben Simmons. He doesn't shoot. He sucks. He's the worst. We don't like him. Oh, look, now he doesn't want to play for us because he's awful. Okay, great. Bring in James Harden. Oh, no, James Harden is the problem. And he's really selfish and he wants the ball all the time. And now he wants to get traded. Okay, James Harden's out of there. What now? Oh, the coaching. I don't like the coaching. The coaching's not good. Not Bobby Brown, something Brown. I could see his face. I'm blanking on his first name. Coach Brown, he's the problem. His scheme is not good for me. I can't grow. We don't have enough shooting. Okay, we'll get rid of him. Oh, Tobias Harris is the problem. He's overpaid and blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, they're all gone. Now what? Who's the problem? You are. The only problem left. You're the only problem left. That's the only constant in this whole equation is you. So, if there's still problems, hey-oh, you're the problem. That's what it is. Like, you got to look at yourself in the mirror, brother. I'm sorry. You just do. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, man, but you're going to turn into Terrell Owens if you're not careful.
Terrell Owens might be the best comparison As soon as you said his name, I had a horrible memory of mid late '90s of him in San Francisco torching Green Bay for a touchdown. That was like one of the most wide open passes
Mm-hmm.
anybody could ever catch. You could have caught that.
Phenomenal player. Phenomenal
And
player.
that's when I think everybody finally took notice. Like, wow, T.O. Terrell Owens is a great player.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of forget about the troubles he had in San Francisco, but yes, he went to Philly for a few years, and everybody's like, Andy Reid and
Yep.
Donovan McNabb can handle T.O. Owens. He moved on. He was definitely a head case in Dallas because everybody's a head case in Dallas.
Yeah.
Team owner's a head case in Dallas.
Yeah.
And then I kind of forgot he went to Buffalo. I thought he went to like the Raiders or something, but yeah, it was probably
Nope.
Buffalo. I
Buffalo.
kind of forgot that. But yeah, such a phenomenal talent, and he showed flashes of that talent in Philly. But then once he left Philly, it was just kind of like, who really wants him? Of course, Jerry Jones wanted him, but
Sure.
which is odd because he's the one that I'm pretty sure knelt down on the star was, and he was in Philly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could tell that you didn't love the fact that I said that Joel Embiid is, you know, one of the top talented centers that we've ever seen. But let me put it to you this way. Let's line up every single center that's ever played in the NBA all time. Take all the and take all the average ones and the bad ones out. Let's just take all the all-time greats. Right? Take your Wilts, take your Kareems, take your Shaqs, take your David Robinsons, take all of them, right? Play them one-on-one against Joel Embiid. All of them. Joel Embiid's beating most of them. Matter of fact, Joel Embiid might beat all of them in terms of talent, in terms of his complete game that he has. Because Shaquille O'Neal was a phenomenal player and a phenomenal defender. Couldn't shoot and couldn't shoot free throws. Wilt Chamberlain was a great defender and a great offensive player, but he didn't shoot past right there. That's literally as far as he went. Same with Kareem. He had his hook shot. Great, fantastic. Take David Robinson. Similar story. Take any center ever. None of them can shoot threes. None of them can make and get to the line nearly as often as Joel Embiid. Now, Shaq could get to the line as often, but he couldn't make free throws. So, to me, pure talent, pure just the totality of their game, Joel Embiid is up there.
Yeah, but then you're going into different eras here, and Embiid is a stretch four in every single one of those guys' era, and he would,
At
he might have
7'1",
been
and 300 pounds, he's a stretch four?
when you compare him to those guys, yeah.
I don't know about
When
that one, man, because he's bigger than all those guys. Like, Wilt's
yeah,
not
but you can't
300 plus
compare him to
pounds
you
like
can't
Joel
compare
Embiid
him to the
is.
Kareems and Wilts and Bills and Shaqs and David Robinsons because none of them had to worry about shooting the 3-pointer. He grew up in an era where everybody shoots a 3-pointer. He went to high school and college where if you can shoot a basketball, you're going to shoot a 3-pointer.
Okay, so then take all the modern day great centers that we've seen when there have been a ton of three-pointers shot. Joel Embiid still beats pretty much all of them other than maybe Jokic.
Okay.
It's like, and so to me, talent, pure talent-wise, I think Terrell Owens is a perfect,
Oh no,
perfect
he is.
comparison.
I 100% agree with you there. I'm 100% with you on the through line and the comparisons because it's a shame to see that much talent and this much drama.
Mm-hmm.
His whole career. Didn't even play his first 2 seasons when he was drafted. I had it up a second ago. Didn't because for as good as he could, and he's played in more than 60 games 4 times out of his 8 seasons. So
Yeah.
it's a and yeah, his stats show great years. Last 3 seasons, he was 30 points or more a game. Before that it was 28.
When he's out there, he is a force of nature. You can't stop him when he's out there, except when the mid court, half court, when it says NBA playoffs, then you can stop him. But if it just says Sixers or Celtics on there or whoever else, he's gonna smack you around. I mean, it's it's a tough time. But again, there's too much drama to overcome here, man. I think I don't think the Sixers missed the playoffs. I think they're probably the sixth seed in the East, really. But I just don't see them being much better
Yeah.
than that.
They're gonna have to fight for that 6 seed. They're gonna have to fight to not fall into the playing tournament.
Yeah, it's so early. I mean, clearly now they're gonna have to just a dogfight to try and stay in this because who knows how long Joel Embiid's gonna be out. I have not received any kind of news or any sort of updates whatsoever on what his timeline is. He's just not been playing. And so that's what's scary to me is that there's not even like, oh yeah, he's almost ready, or yeah, he's here in the rehab process, and we're getting him out there and he's practicing. I haven't heard anything. And so like, how long is he? Is he out? Like Kristaps is out like until like Christmas? Because if he's out then that means for the next 3 months you gotta hope and pray to God or whoever else will listen that Paul George stays healthy. Because if he doesn't, you're already without Maxi for at least 2 to 3 weeks minimum. So that's at least 10 games that you're without Maxi. And that's on the very, very low end. Maxi's going to be out. So if Embiid's out that whole time, you got only Paul George to help keep you afloat. Now, Paul George and the supporting cast they have, probably good enough to beat some of the low tier teams in the East, you know. Um, but I don't even know about that because listen, the Bulls are playing pretty decent right now. At least last I looked, they were beating the Timberwolves right now, which is that's a good team. The Timberwolves are a good team. They beat the Bucks, who obviously everybody's beat the Bucks this year, but they beat Damian Lillard and Giannis. That's not a slouch of a roster that they beat here. So, that's a halfway decent team. The Pistons are pretty good. Honestly, they'd probably beat the Magic just because the poor Magic have nothing now. But beat the Magic. I'd say they'll beat the Nets, but the Nets are the 3 seed. So what the heck do I know? Maybe the Nets are a lot better, but the Nets have not a whole lot of talent. So maybe they could beat the Nets, but I don't know if I trust them against the Pacers right now. I don't know if I trust them against the Hornets right now. The Hornets are playing really well.
I'm going to give you a hot take.
Fire away.
This is my Philadelphia hot take. They will not be a top 6 team in the East, and they'll be lucky to be higher than the 8th seed. I think they're going to fall in that 8 to 10 range, play-in tournament.
Okay.
Considering the bottom of the East, they should, even if they have half George and Max for even half the season, not even factoring Embiid, like that team should make the play-in tournament. But
in the East for sure, yeah.
in the East, yeah.
In the West, they wouldn't. In the West, they'd probably be the 12th seed.
In the East, they'll make the play-in tournament, but they won't even get to host a play-in game. They will be on the road. Well, I guess technically the 9th seed host the game, but
yeah,
but I mean,
fair enough.
Yeah, they're going to be 8 to 10.
Okay,
you heard it here.
You heard it here, Dan the man with a breaking prediction there. Well, Dan, I think you had a question. So fire away on that
going
question.
Right in with this too is with we're talking about Philadelphia, Milwaukee, the talent's there, but the way the East shapes up, the West is always tougher. And given recent seasons, how we've seen that balance, would you be in favor of a playoffs that's seeded with all the NBA teams, not just by conference?
Yes.
Like take the top 20 teams from the league as a whole?
Yes. I would now. Now, I was very feverishly against it for a long time. Because for me, they started really talking about this back in like the mid 2010s, maybe early 2010s, where they were like, we should everybody should be 1 through 16 at the time. Now 1 through 20, obviously, for the play-in. But the problem now is the way that the NBA has now changed the financial rules with this new CBA is players are so incentivized to stay with their teams now. And yet, they have a ton of power to be traded wherever they want to go. There's all these sign and trade options that pretty much everybody does now. Very few people that are actually really good just up and leave their team and go somewhere else. That very rarely happens in the NBA when you're a top tier player, an all-star caliber player. That doesn't happen very often. So, and it doesn't even happen with like mid-tier guys oftentimes. Like Grant Williams left the Celtics on a sign and trade for like a second round pick and cash. Like just because we're like, we don't want to let him go for free, so we'll just, So it's right now there's such little movement with players, with real major players that are not trades, that I actually would be in favor of it, because if a player has a lot of control over where they go, I feel like 90% of the time they're going out west. They want to go play in LA, or they want to go play for the Warriors, or, whatever it is, right? And then if they're signing in free agency, those teams that are out there, other than the Knicks and the Celtics, and maybe the Sixers, they have more money to spend. They just do. They have more marketing. They have more advertising. They have more, bigger contracts and stuff. Now, I know there's a salary cap, but they have owners that are willing to spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eastern Conference, I love the Eastern Conference. I'm a Celtics fan. I think that the Eastern Conference playoffs has had some of the best basketball I've ever seen in my life. But let's be honest with ourselves. There's not a whole lot of big market teams in the East. There's like 3.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to include maybe Miami is 4. Outside of that, Detroit, Milwaukee, Indiana, the Brooklyn Nets, I guess, are a big market team, but they've been bad for most of their thing.
Right.
And the gusto
you
wore
you have
off.
the biggest market that has 2 teams that the last 20 years are not exactly teams
Great.
you
Yeah.
want to care about.
Yeah. And, Toronto, Orlando, Chicago Bulls, they used to be big market, but they've been bad for so long. Nobody wants to go play there. I'm sorry. And plus, no offense to Chicago, I've always wanted to go to Chicago. I've only ever spent time there in the airports. It's one of my bucket list places that I want to go spend time, but not exactly one of the safest towns in America or one of the cheapest towns in America. So, not a lot of incentive to go there if you're a player and move your family there. There's, the Eastern Conference just does not have a lot of big market teams, whereas on the Western Conference, Dallas, both the LA teams, Golden State, Houston, that's already more than the Eastern Conference, and I've just started. So San Antonio, not necessarily huge market or huge town, but they've been great. That's a city with greatness. It's a team with greatness attached to it. So I could go on and on and on. I think that now the power balance in the NBA is basically, okay, well, we can't outbid teams. So if we're going to have good players, we either have to trade a billion assets for them, which is going to hurt us long term, or we have to draft them, which is luck of the draw. You better just get lucky. So if teams don't get lucky, you're done. There's a reason why the Pistons have been rebuilding since like 2007 or 2008. They just can't get it right. These poor guys can't draft anybody right. They got Cade, great, but you can't just draft one guy. It's got to be more. Hornets, same thing. They just cannot get it right in the draft. It feels like every year they get so unlucky. Like,
Yep.
It's so bad. I mean, how many generational players have come in the draft that the Hornets were one pick away from being able to take? Anthony Davis, I think Wemby, right? I think this year they had the second overall pick, did they not?
Mm-hmm. They did.
Okay, and then when they took Brandon Miller.
Yep.
Wait, that was last year, wasn't it? Yeah, that was last year. I'm out of my mind. So
Yep.
it's just
one
it's
pick away from Wemby.
One pick away from Wemby. One pick away from AD. Like, oh god, it's tragic. So like, to me now, I think it actually would benefit the NBA to have a seeding where it takes, because right now, based on what I'm seeing, I swear to you, 12 teams in the West would make the playoffs. 12 at least, because the Spurs would probably make it over a couple of teams in the East. Like, all
Yep.
right, let's be honest. Do we really want to see? And again, I'm picking on the Chicago Bulls. I feel so bad. I actually like watching the Chicago Bulls play this year. They've been fun to watch. But
Like you said, like it's like the Pistons have been rebuilding since the mid 2000s. The Bulls have been rebuilding since the late 90s.
well, yeah, well, they were really good for like 3 or 4 years in the 2010s with Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah and Luol Deng and Ben Gordon and
Right, but
Kirk Hinrich. They were one seed for a couple of years.
maybe four.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
So I wouldn't say they've been rebuilding since the '90s. They've been rebuilding since then because they were excellent. Um, but yeah, no, I understand your point. But like the Bulls, like, do we want to, as they're constructed right now, without any changes, do you want to see the Bulls play in the playoffs, or do you want to see the Spurs play in the playoffs? You want to see the Spurs because the Spurs would have a better chance. That's just the
who's
way
the
it
best
is.
player on the Bulls right now? Is
Zach
LaVine
LaVine
still
or
there?
Kobe White, one
Okay.
of those two.
Okay.
So
At least I
your
know.
starting
At least I know
lineup,
one player.
yeah. So your starters are probably Kobe White, um, Zach LaVine. I don't know who's starting at your three right now. Maybe Matas Buzelis is probably starting. They're your top 10 draft pick. And then Vucevic is definitely starting at the five. Patrick Williams probably at the four, I would have to guess. Um, or maybe Patrick Williams at the three
Giddy,
and Buzelis at the four, however they're structuring that. But
Giddy is
that's probably
starting.
your. Oh, is Giddy starting for them? So is it Kobe White, Giddy,
Who's
Levine,
their draft pick this year?
Williams? What?
Who's their draft pick again this year?
Matas Buzelis. So is he coming off the bench? Buzelis, maybe.
Who?
Matas Buzelis. His last name should be
Oh, okay.
Buzelis. Yeah,
I see the name now.
he's probably not starting for them if I had to guess, which is criminal because he's way better than anybody
No.
on that team. So.
He's averaging 8 minutes a game right now.
Oh my God! What? God, I just thought the games that I watched he just like was hurt or something, or he just wasn't playing all that much because they were easing him in. I didn't realize he was never playing. Oh, that's criminal.
Yeah,
He's
Zach
so much,
LaVine
dude. He's
started.
so much better
Zach
than anybody
LaVine
else on
started
that team. I'm
6 games.
telling you. What?
Zach LaVine has started 6 of the games he's been in.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Levine, Kobe, Vucevic, Giddy, and Dasanu.
Oh, is Patrick Williams still hurt?
Oh no, sorry. No, Patrick Williams. I crossed my line too.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
No,
Patrick
you're
Williams
good.
is all other starter.
No, man. No,
Yeah,
no worries.
how do you pronounce this guy's name? Let me click on Io Dosumu.
Io DeSumo. I didn't really. Why are they starting him? He's a two
No,
or he's a one.
yeah, I think he started when Levine didn't start, but he's getting starter minutes. So he must
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So again, did that team? It just no, like not in the playoffs. I'm sorry. But in the East, they're gonna probably make the play in. And my
like
first,
they have every year for the last 6 years.
yeah.
Or since it
So
started.
I was so tempted to have my first episode of Reload, Retool, Rebuild be about the Bulls because I just. But the problem with that is if anybody has watched this channel since its inception, they will know that my answer will be, for God's sakes, just rebuild already! Like, that will be what I will just yell for 20 minutes. Please. I've been screaming for them to rebuild for like 4 years, dude. Please just rebuild. I can't do it. I cannot stand it anymore. And they keep on not doing it. And they keep on being so mediocre I want to vomit in my own mouth. And they just won't do it. They're going to be the 9 seed again this year for like the 3rd or 4th or 5th or 760th year in a row. And they won't rebuild. It's like, please, please. So I can't do that episode right away because guess what? Everybody knows what it's going to be. So, I don't know, man. I would definitely support it now just to kind of. It's so divided now. Like it really, really is so unbelievably divided. And the East is so top heavy Like, even if you were to have taken everybody at face value and say, oh, everybody's playing to their full potential. Everybody's exactly where they thought they were. So you got the Celtics, you got the Cavs, you got the Bucks, you got the Sixers, you got the Knicks. You got the Pacers, who are pretty good but not quite there, and then you got everybody else. Maybe the Magic. You throw the Magic in there too. But then you got the Bulls, you got the Pistons, you got the Nets, you got the Raptors. You got a bunch of really bad teams. You got the
Yeah.
Miami Heat, who just, for God's sake, stop already. Like with this Jimmy Butler is the best player ever. I saw him yesterday. I think it was the game yesterday. Maybe it was 2 days ago. They were down by 2 points. He had an open three to win the game. He went to go shoot it, and then he went, nope, and he threw it to somebody who was being double teamed, and they just had to go, and just throw it at the hoop just wildly. Didn't even remotely hit anything, and they lost the game. And I was like, yeah, that's your alpha dog. Good job, Miami. You did great. Like, that's your alpha. A guy who doesn't feel like taking the game-winning shot because it's the regular season. He doesn't care. Like, the stupid freaking blonde dreadlocks that he has because he's trying to be cool or something. I hate Jimmy Butler, dude. I hate him. I'm sorry. I hate him. Everybody thinks he's so good. He's not. He doesn't try in the regular season. It drives me
Yeah.
nuts.
A little overrated for myself too.
Ugh.
Yep.
And now in the playoffs, he's him. I can't deny it. He's him in the playoffs. But guess what? You're not going to make the playoffs if you don't try in the regular season.
Yep.
Like, it bothers me that because that's what he thinks that he can do. Because he's done it now. Now he thinks, oh, well, I don't have to try in the regular season. I can just, be Jimmy Butler in the regular season and score 18 points a night and let everybody else do their thing. And then by the time I get to the playoffs, I'll dye my hair blonde, I'll scream like Goku, and then I'll kill everybody. And it bothers me a ton. It bothers me so much. And no, not just because I'm a Celtics fan and he's beaten us a bunch of times, but just because, like, dude, that's not, like, that should not be what the game of basketball is to people.
It kind of falls in the Embiid category in a sense of like tons of potential that we have not been able to been realized
Yeah.
because he's shown that he has it in the playoffs. But yeah,
I will say the one thing that I definitely take Jimmy Butler's side for is the fact that the Philadelphia 76ers looked at their team and went, okay, Ben
what's gonna bring us up?
Simmons, J.J. Redick, Jimmy Butler, Marcus Morris, or Markieff, whichever of the Morris brothers was there at the time, I can't remember, and Joel Embiid, and they chose Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. That may have been the dumbest move in the history of sports because they were priced identically. That's the funny part. Is that they were asking for like the same exact money, or maybe Jimmy was asking for a little bit more. But they were like, nah, man, Tobias is our guy. Because he played well on a bad team that one time. Because he scored like 19 points a game on the Pistons. Remember that? He's so good. No, he's not. He's not good. He's not. He's not good. And guess what? He's playing for the Pistons again. It all comes around. But like that's the one thing that I'm like, yeah, they messed up. And they what they did to Jimmy, they basically thought that he was a problem child, and he left, and he was like, nah, dude, I was just hanging out, like, and I'm like, yeah, it feels like he was just kind of hanging out. So I do take his side on that one, but everything else, like, again, that's not what basketball is supposed to be about. Basketball is supposed to be something that you do because you love. The regular season is supposed to be, trial and error and figuring things out and playing the way you need to play in the playoffs. And the fact that Jimmy Butler just does not give a frick in the regular season bothers me so much. That he just leaves his team out to dry. He doesn't set the right example for how to be on the court. And the one that's even worse for me, the fact that he has such an underrated, beautiful talent in Bam Adebayo and has had him for 5 years, and he leaves
Wow.
him out to dry every night by saying, yeah, Bam, you take it. I don't really feel like it. You could be the alpha tonight. when that's not what Bam does. The fact that Bam Adebayo has had to start taking 4 to 5 threes a game when he shouldn't have to, just because, oh, well, I have to do it because we have to survive. Like, it's not even because I want to take the next step as a player. It's no, we have to win 42 games or else we're not going to make the playoffs. Because Jimmy Butler doesn't care. That's the saddest part to me, is that he's being left out to dry when he could be in so many other places where he's being used at his strength. Because three-point shooting's not his strength, but he has to do it. Or, taking 30 shots a game is not his strength. That's not what he's there to do. He's there to be the best defender in the NBA, because that's what he is. And he does that very well, but he almost like can't even focus on that because he's got to carry this team who's got really nobody because Jimmy Butler just doesn't care. It's sad, man. It's really sad. Well, all right, Dan, I have kept you long enough, sir. Thank you so much for doing this, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And we're
great.
definitely going to get together and do this again. Not only on this podcast, but certainly I'm looking forward to getting back onto yours. Of course, if you'll have me. But anyways, all you guys, thank you so very much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about all the questions that we ended up asking, all the topics that came up. This was a ton of fun, and I want to hear some opinions. So thank you guys all so very much for watching, and we will see you all next time.